Hi, and welcome to BonBon Break Live. I'm Val Curtis, the editor-in-chief at bonbonbreak.com, and we are here to bring a live version of our site to you and to get to chat with you and our contributors and our audience, of course. So if you're new here, welcome. Please subscribe, tweet, pin, and post with us everywhere, and jump into the site where it says BonBon Break Live to see past shows or to listen to them via podcast. And, of course, it's another place that you can subscribe. But today, we have a power panel with us today, and I really want to dig in. So I'm here to welcome you, or introduce you to Leslie Marinelli from In the Powder Room. Leslie?
Thanks for having me.
And Shannon Lell from Mamapedia.
Hello. Hi.
And Lynn Morrison from BLUNTMoms.
Hello.
And Sarah Millar from Mamalode.
Hello, everyone.
So I'm so excited to have 5 editors in one spot, and I just kind of feel like we could take over the world right now. Before we go any further, I would like to send a message out to our Canadian friends. There is some serious things happening in your country, and our thoughts are with you at this time. That being said, we were commenting before this about the power within the screen right now, and that there are 5 editors here, and the reach between our sites is pretty impressive. The voices that we share between us, each of us are collective sites where we are sharing multiple voices. So it's incredible to think of a gathering of so many voices in just one spot here. So thank you for joining us today. And what I'd love to do first is, we'll start with you, Leslie, is I would love for each of you to plug your favorite post on your front page right now and share why you like it, to kind of give our viewers an idea about your site and your voice.
Okay. Well, my site is inthepowderroom.com, and the post that we have up right now that is my favorite on the homepage is called 31 Things That Scare Me More Than Ebola. And the reason it's my favorite, it's by a woman named Tara of You Know What Happens at Your House Too. And it's a humor post, which you don't expect to hear humor and Ebola in the same sentence. And that's why I like it so much, because it's putting it in perspective and giving parents everywhere a reason to laugh and not be so afraid.
I like that. I like that a lot. And let's go, Shannon. Why don't you tell us yours?
Yes, hi. Currently on the front page, there is a fun little post by Mackenzie of Mommy Needs a Swear Jar called Oh My Gourd. And it's a really cute story about, something that we all do. We take something our child has done or said they want to do, and then all of a sudden it's this huge project for us. So she grows a pumpkin for her kindergartner, and she brings him a little seed, and then she grows this pumpkin, and it's like a Little Shop of Horror pumpkin, and then she spends an entire weekend creating muffins and pies and it's just a typical mom thing to do. And so it was just really cute, and it was really well written, and it was funny, and it was a great story. So that's the one I like on the homepage.
Love it. And go ahead, Sarah. Share with us.
Hi. So today, wow, this is a hard one. We have 3 new posts up today, and they're kind of on both ends of the spectrum. Some pretty light stuff and some really heavy stuff. But I'm going to go with a piece we have today called An Open Letter to My Son's Drug Dealer by a woman named Logan Fisher of A Muddled Mother is her blog. And I chose this piece because it's really deep, it's really intense. She writes about her teenage son actually going to jail because of his drug use, and that for the first time in 2 years she actually got a full night's sleep because she actually knew where her son was. And so it's really in line with a lot of the content that we publish. It's gutsy, it's raw, it's very heartfelt, and I'm sure was very hard to write. So I would suggest checking that one out today.
That sounds amazing. I can't wait to look into that one. I'll definitely check it out. And Lynn, can you share yours with us?
My favorite piece on the site right now is one from Sarah, who writes at Established 1975. She's one of our regular contributors, and she wrote a post called McDonald's and the Humongous Army Green Dumpster. And I love Sarah because she takes a sort of topic that we've all talked about a million times, which is going into labor, and she writes this completely hilarious tale about how she woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and was dying for McDonald's, and her husband wouldn't go get it for her, and she goes and she manages to wait until McDonald's opens, and she gets there and she gets the food, and then she gets back home and she barfs it all up because she's too pregnant and she can't eat it all, and she didn't care because she still got what she was desperate for. And the only reason she can remember the exact date of that story is because that afternoon she went into labor with her son. And it's just classic blunt moms, you know, telling the story that you probably wouldn't tell normally in polite society, but the writing is excellent, and it makes you laugh from start to finish.
Oh, that's funny. I like that. That's, yeah, mine was, I won't mention the brand name, but a certain brand of ravioli that I, like, never eat. I wanted, like, 7 cans. And I cried in Costco until my husband got me a sample. But for us right now, we have a story that's called "How Am I?" I'm in the trenches. And it's by Vanessa Lee from Mind Dumping in Yoga Pants, and she is brand new to the scene. She had to open up her social media networks this weekend, and I was really excited to share her new voice, and it's a really moving, heartfelt piece, and it's incredibly well written, and it's resonated with tons of our readers in the fact that either they've gone through that experience recently, or they understand, they feel it's nice to hear someone else's voice that's been in the trenches, so to speak. So it's a really nice piece to resonate, and much as each of you said, it's resonating with your audience and letting kind of your readers know that they're not in it alone. There are others going through that same thing, and getting humor and also different perspectives along the way. So I opened up questions to a lot of our readers and our audience and our contributors, saying, okay, we've got this panel here, and I had over, well, I'm looking at my number count here, I had over 50 questions come in. And so we will not be able to tackle all those today, but there were different themes that jumped up throughout. And one of them was, what is your secret to rejecting someone nicely? And if we could just kind of roll through everyone, Leslie, we'll start with you.
How do I reject someone nicely?
You don't right now, I'm just kidding.
Well, you know, it's never easy or fun to reject someone's writing. You know, I hope that people understand that it's often just has to do with whether a piece is a good fit for our site or our readers, or the tone. You know, our site is primarily humor. So that's not everybody's cup of tea, and it's not everybody's wheelhouse. So, you know, I do my best to let people down nicely and encourage them to keep at it and maybe send something else. Sometimes, though, you know, there are so many themes that are repeated over and over and over, and it can be really hard to find a fresh perspective on something. So, like Lynn was just saying with the whole pregnancy and the green dumpster, we've all written about our birth stories, and it can be really challenging to find a unique piece that hasn't been done 100 times.
And from a fresh voice as well. I mean, I think that's, you know, the key thing is we get fresh perspectives, but also something that sounds new to our readers. I think it's definitely something that's always challenging. And go ahead, Lynn.
Well, yeah, we don't reject things super nicely because we're blunt. I mean, that's our whole MO, right? So our editor-in-chief, Magnolia Ripken, is infamous for the way she writes the rejections and what she'll tell you. And we really have had a lot of discussions about whether it's better to send kind of a nice, you know, thank you for your piece, but not at this time, or you know, just no thank you, and we ultimately decided that didn't benefit anyone. We'd rather tell you why we're rejecting the piece, and you could rewrite it. Usually they didn't push the envelope far enough. I mean, we're blunt. We want you to go there, and if you write a really safe piece, we're probably going to reject it. Or it's because you just need to develop the style of writing that we do on our site a bit more, and then you should come back again. And sometimes that can be really hard to hear. And it's not meant that you're a terrible writer. You may be an excellent writer in your genre that you typically do. It just means that you haven't quite gotten there and what we look for our site and the tone and the style that we have. So, yeah, it's not everyone's cup of tea to hear, you know, no thank you, this piece just kind of sucked, but sometimes that's what we say.
Okay, and Sarah?
Well, I appreciate everything you guys have just said and really agree with everything. You know, we use a submissions platform called Submittable. If you guys aren't using it, you should definitely check it out. And it's a great way for us to keep all of our submissions organized. And one of the functions I love about it is that I have a default declined response. And so actually everybody that gets declined gets the same email. So in some ways it's very nice and friendly and encouraging, but it kind of takes the personal piece out of it. And oftentimes people will follow up with me and say, you know, why did you reject that piece? Is there something I can be doing differently? And oftentimes it's just that we have more volume for a certain theme than we have spots to publish. And so it's just really competitive. And so again, we are looking for those unique storytelling pieces that stick to our mission of no how-tos, no advice, no judgment, political type pieces, and that are in line with our guidelines. And so sometimes it is just having people go back, really look at the type of content that we're publishing, and is it even in line with our mission? We do see a lot of people that will submit the same thing to, you know, 10 different websites, not necessarily catering it to each person's different mission. And so, you know, a lot of times it's just telling people, go and read what we're publishing. You know, go and see what kind of flow we're looking for in our pieces.
That's a really good point, Sarah. Actually, Leslie and I were talking about that before, is at one point, you know, when somebody posts a piece on their site, you know, there are people who, is everything that they post on their site, they tag us in Twitter.
Right.
And it's like, well, we're not going to put every single post. And then what tends to happen, I mean, I hate to say this, but we tend to start turning a blind eye to that person, because it's like, oh, they're just sharing all of their stuff with us all the time, which is flattering. It is most definitely flattering, without a doubt. But it's also know our audiences, know what we're putting out there, and make sure that whatever you're sending to us is catered to us. You hit on something really interesting there, Sarah, that all of us have talked to in one format or another, is when one writer submits one piece to many places.
Yeah, that's happened just actually recently. I was going to accept a piece, and she said, oh, sorry, it already got picked up somewhere else. And I said, well, okay, you should, if it already got picked up. And the site that it did get picked up was much bigger than ours. I think Huffington Post, I think, picked it up. So it wasn't something that I was then going to run, you know, that next week. And so I think it's being thoughtful about that too. And again, maybe it just goes back to that where everybody's just submitting to multiple platforms, hoping that somebody picks it up. But it is your responsibility as a submitter, you know, to communicate that. Because it's, you know, it does waste our time when we have lots of submissions. So any way that people can help us streamline it is going to increase your chances of us wanting to publish you in the future.
That's a really good point. And we actually have a piece that we are syndicating from one of these lovely ladies a couple of weeks after it's been up on their site, because it's a great message and we want to get it out to as many people as possible. So we're also working together as editors to get strong messages out there to larger audiences using all of our platforms. So communicate with us when you have a message that you want to broadcast, because we're all talking too, and we're there with you wanting to get the message out to more people. So, Shannon, you didn't have a chance to respond, so I wanted to make sure that you did about rejection.
Well, I don't have a lot to add because I don't send rejection notices. I mean, I just don't have the bandwidth to do that because I get so many submissions to read through and critique and then send back as to why I'm not accepting it. Because Mamapedia is kind of an across-the-board site. We have no one drilled down focus. So I accept a lot of different things for a lot of different reasons. And if I were to spend time sending everybody an email as to why, you know, things are rejected, I wouldn't get anything done. So I don't send rejection letters, but if somebody is emailing me and asking me for, okay, why did this happen, and I'll reply and I'll give them an honest answer. I'll say this is not what I was looking for, or something to that effect. If somebody, what I like to encourage is writing and storytelling in this platform, in the blogging platform. I think it's an amazing form of self-expression. So if I see some talent in somebody, but they need a few tweaks, I might take the time and email them and say, look, you know, you've got something here, but you need to really tweak this, or you need to really tweak that. Because I think it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there, and any encouragement that we can all get along the way just makes us that much better.
No, that's a really, really great point. And we're also in the same boat. We don't respond to every single submission. And one thing that's been happening lately is that it seems, which is nice, that our contributors will see something that's doing well on our site, and then we'll get like 10 submissions on that exact same topic. And so one thing that I would say to contributors out there is, yes, so that did resonate with our readers, but we can't put 10 more topics or 10 more articles on that exact same topic. That just, we're going to oversaturate our readership there. So maybe to hear the voice that was used there, or the perspective, or the technique that that writer used to reach our audience that resonated, versus tackling that same topic in the same way and sending it in. So for us, that's tricky. One thing I love that Mamalode does is they have their themes every month, which is a really nice way. But I love that they're really general, which is nice. And Sarah, you had talked about that a little bit.
Sorry, unmute myself. Yes. Yeah, we do that on purpose. I mean, it's nice to have a framework for our month, and it's a way that we can also bring in monthly sponsors and work with them on a theme that might work with their brand. But at the same time, you know, people will, you know, we get people to write so on the nose to the theme, and sometimes we'll get a lot of the same type of content again. And some themes just lend themselves to that. Our theme, Nourish, I mean, almost every submission we got was about breastfeeding, and we realized, well, sure, I mean, that theme is what comes to mind. You know, feeding your child is what comes to mind. And so, you know, we try and encourage people to take it in a really unique way, in a really different way that maybe we wouldn't have thought of. And then also, you know, if it's just good storytelling, like Shannon said, you know, it doesn't matter necessarily if it fits to the theme. You know, we just want good content. So we'll find a place for it, even if it's not, you know, right on the nose, literally.
That's great advice. That's really great advice. We have a question here, and it says, I'm going to read it literally. What advice do you have for kick-ass approaches for reviving a neglected blog? So this sounds like someone who is trying to breathe new life back into their site, and they are wondering if you have any advice for them. Anyone want to jump in there? Have anything come to mind? You just kind of give me a if you're thinking. Does anyone think of anything there?
I can jump in. Sometimes I think if you want to try and breathe new life back into something, the best way to do it is to take a bit of a risk and try and write something that's either really from the heart, or really, really funny, or really, really sad, or, you know, kind of push it to the limit and then just share the heck out of it. We bloggers, all of us, have just amazing networks that we've built up over time, and bloggers love to help other bloggers. And I think if you're trying to revive a blog, pour your heart into that first post, share it with your network, ask them to help promote it with you, and just kind of revive the traffic back to your site again that way. And really don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's really, really great advice. And make sure that it's that you spend some time with it. Make sure it's well edited. That's always, I mean, I'm seeing everybody smile as I say that across the board. Just a quick wave of a hand from each of you. Well, on receiving pieces that need a lot of editing, sometimes it's hard because I know we receive pieces that it's like, oh, this is great voice or a great content idea, but the volume of editing that's needed is more than I can take on. Anybody else's feedback with that? Lynn, did you want to jump? Or go ahead, Leslie.
I was going to say, I know I'm the odd man out on this one because I've heard other interviews with all of you, and I don't mind when there are a lot of typos or grammatical errors. It doesn't bother me because I feel like as an editor, that's my role. What I'm more concerned about is if somebody can tell a compelling story. And if they can tell a good story, then I will do the polishing. I feel like that's my job. But then again, you know, there are other things that I'm not putting my time into. So maybe what I need to do is take a page from you gals and be more choosy about that and spend less time on the editing. But, you know, I've been told that the editing in the powder room is one of the things that brings people back. So and that's one of the things I like to do. So I don't mind it.
Yeah, you're an incredible editor. I've given you accolades for that many times over. Yeah, no, it's so true. Lynn, were you going to add something else in there as well?
Well, when we started out, and even earlier this year, we would get submissions, and sometimes it was on a topic that we just had never talked about, and we thought, God, yes, this is a really compelling tale, or she presents a unique point of view, but the writing is not good, but we'll edit it. And at the end of the day, we had some really great posts that 2/3 of the content was written by our editor, and that is really time-consuming. So now that we are getting a lot of submissions, it's hard to find the time to do that. I mean, exactly as Leslie said, if we spend times doing major rewrites, we aren't going to be able to get through all the submissions, or we're not going to be able to get all our posts up that week, or whatever the case may be. I think probably a lot of us do some amount of editing. It's hard not to. You know, especially when you see something, you say, well, this slight tweak here, this could be perfect, you know, and I think most of us would probably be willing to do that. Or even, as Shannon said, go back and give them the coaching on it. But it is, when there are a lot of submissions coming in, even if you are really passionate about it, it's hard to find the time.
No, it's definitely true, and that actually falls into another question that we have here, and I love this. Would love to know for a friend if it's okay to reach out to editors if we haven't heard from them regarding our submissions. So I know for us, if you haven't heard from us within 30 days, it's probably not going to, that particular piece is not going to make it on Break, but there are many channels to reach us. We have a great team of editors, and many people have kind of settled up next to one of our editors to be able to see what they need. And I think that's a really great thing, is to reach out to individual editors to say, hey, what do you need right now? What do you want? For us, that's a great thing. But for each of you, how do you feel about people reaching out to you once they've submitted a piece? Anyone?
Awkward. I think it's awkward. I do. I use Submittable too, just like Sarah. And so you know that a piece is in my inbox because you get an automatic receipt saying, thank you for your submission, and we'll be back in touch with you within 30 days if we'd like to publish it. And so if you nag me, especially if you do it publicly on social media, which I have seen people do lately, they've reached out to me on Twitter saying things like, I'm sorry this piece didn't fit. And it's really uncomfortable and unprofessional.
And just a note to any writers who are listening, groups are not private. We just need to say that groups are not private. Even if they may seem to be private groups, just be aware that anything, as we tell our kids all the time, anything you put out there is out there. So just please be aware of that. And Leslie, like you said, I agree. It feels awkward sometimes because it might be a particular voice just doesn't fit with what you've got going on the site at that time or a particular direction you're going. And it's hard. It can be really hard.
And I've had people, I have a 30-day window, and I think some of you do also. And I need that amount of time because I'm operating on my own right now. So, I can only do so much on any given day. And I've had people, withdraw their pieces after 2 weeks and say, well, I haven't heard from you, so I guess you don't like it. And it's like, oh, I wanted to read that. It looked like it was going to be a good piece. I just didn't have time to get to it yet. So I don't do well under that kind of pressure of, gun to my head, hurry up and read and make a decision. I need to see where something fits on our editorial calendar. I plan about a month in advance, so I don't want to be rushed.
Yeah, and do you want to add into that?
Yeah, I feel this is more of a question of professionalism and self-awareness. I mean, the blog world is open to anyone, right? And being editors, we can instantly tell who has been at it for a while and who hasn't. And I think it might sometimes be a question of professionalism, and just remember that when you're reaching out to an editor, we read a lot of blogs, and we're doing the best that we can with all of the content that we get. And the responses that you give to us, whether it's in the spirit of thank you, I appreciate it, or why didn't you run this? I mean, remember, this is a profession. I mean, this is something that people do all day, every day for their life. It's not always a hobby. So I think the bit of self-awareness when you're submitting that, this might be something you do on a part-time, but this is something that I do every day, kind of a situation.
That's a really, really good reminder there, Shannon. And it is hard. I mean, there are days that I wake up to 175 emails, and I just go, oh my gosh, like I need to talk to my editors first and foremost. But even there are days where it's 48 hours for them to get a response from me. So, as we talk to everyone, if you don't hear something in this age of immediacy, if you don't hear from, I can speak for myself, from me immediately, that doesn't mean that I don't want to talk to you or that I'm ignoring you. It just might be that my cup runneth over on that particular day. Something else I would like to throw out to you. This one's a little bit of a stacked question here. This is, we all know and love Susan Macarelli, and she said, I recently did an article on how a blogger submitting something can piss off an editor, and we'll be doing a follow-up about how an editor can piss off a blogger submitting something, which just made my eyebrows go up. Most of your panel have been on both sides of the fence. So, without me being redundant here, is being a blogger first editor. I'll jump in there and say really quickly that I work with such an incredible community of women that all have really high levels of respect for one another. And so if anybody comes in and starts kind of throwing some diva-esque behaviors, I back away right away. I think there's way too much support, and there are so many people who are eager to be on our site that anyone who starts acting in that way, it just strikes exactly what Shannon said on the professionalism. It's really, truly unprofessional, and so I just back away. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can jump in here. Sometimes when there's a timely topic, say something in the media like Renee Zellweger right now, and that whole thing going on with her, cosmetic surgery or whatnot, if there's something really timely, I may reach out to somebody and say, hey, can you produce something fast? And I've done that before, and then what's submitted it's timely, it's topical, but it needs a little more revision, so I'll do a little more revision on that, cut paragraphs and stuff, and that's where it's gotten problematic for me in terms of, then somebody comes and they're like super attached to this thing they just wrote like 2 hours ago, and then they're like, I don't want to cut that paragraph, and I'm like, but I asked you to do it because it was timely, and so I kind of backed away from asking people to write certain things about certain topics. I think that's where I tended to go wrong in the beginning. I'll just search for something timely. But on that note, I think if an editor's coming to you for a relationship and asking you to write something, I think you really need to be exceptionally open to revision at that point. Like, okay, we're working together, we're doing this on the fly. I think, and I tend to do this too sometimes, but you get emotionally attached to the words that you've written. And again, going back to the professionalism, you just can't. I mean, we both want the same goal. We both want a well-written piece, and you just have to take a step back and say, okay, this is, I know I wrote these words, and I'm really attached to this sentence, but, kill your darling sometimes. So, again, I think it comes back to the professionalism on both sides.
Sarah, I saw you nodding along there. Did you want to add something in?
No, I just really appreciate what all of you have to say. Just sort of getting back to that professionalism, yeah, I mean, I think we all have the same goal. We all want a really strong piece, and, I think it's our job to, polish pieces, but we don't necessarily want to take people's voices out of it. So I think that kind of comes down to, how people are writing it. Can you write a piece that stands strong enough that it can be revised or edited? And again, just being open to working with an editor. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you do have somebody else that can look at your piece objectively and make it really strong. I mean, that's going to be good for your own career and your own blogging.
Just a quick wave of hands across the four of you. How many of you have ever cut entire paragraphs out of pieces? Just wave your hand if you've done that. Okay? So for those of you who are out there, when we send a piece back to you and there are entire paragraphs out, it's not that we don't appreciate your writing and your voice and where you were going in your story. We see a way to tighten it up for our readers. And we know our reader base best. And so in my perspective, the way that we're presenting your voice to our readers that they will respond to. Because sometimes it might be that the backstory goes too long or something. But there's something in there that makes us feel that we can tighten it up for our readers. It was interesting because somebody asked one of the questions on here. Let me get to it. Oh, here it is. Thoughts on less is more. This person said, my personal attention span is very short. How do you keep a reader's attention?
This is such a hot topic in the Blunt Moms editorial team. I'm on the side of, at about 700 words, I really, really start to tune out. And then we have members of the editorial team that they don't tune in until they hit 700 words. So I think that's a really good example of how lots of different types of readers to the site. And ultimately, the word count doesn't matter if the story holds itself together and moves all the way through. I mean, it's the same way you can go to a movie and it be 2.5 hours long, and you come out and you're like, holy cow, has it been 2.5 hours? It felt like I walked in there 5 minutes ago because you were so engrossed, you totally lost track of time. And if you have a piece like that, I don't care if you're going for 2,000 words, if it's good, we'll publish it. Conversely, if you're stretching out something and it's becoming like painfully long, yeah, we're going to hack a lot of paragraphs, probably more than one. We'll hack several. But one thing I've seen a lot lately that seems to be a popular style is to do the kind of derailed train of thought, where they're going along and they're telling a story, and then they insert all these little funny asides because they're trying to be really funny, and the asides just totally make you lose track of where you are in the story. And that's a very common thing for us to go through and pull out. We're like, okay, yes, that was funny, but all I remember from the story is the 4 funny asides, and I can't remember what this piece is about. So I think you have to kind of find. It can be long, but it's gotta move all the way through.
Yeah, I totally agree, Lynn. There was an article that came out recently, and that was about teens and sexting, and Leslie and I had been talking about that also. But it's interesting because it was a long article. I mean, I can't even, Leslie,
I couldn't.
That. I mean, if it was 10,000, yeah. I mean, seriously, it was long.
At least 5,000. I couldn't get through it.
Yeah, and that's interesting because for me, that whole article from beginning to end, I was like reading every last detail of that because it really had caught my attention. Mm-hmm. But then again, like Leslie said, she dropped off somewhere in between. So it's interesting because for each of us, with every post that we put up, I mean, I should only speak for myself, but I want to make sure that my reader can make it through to the end. And sometimes I'll have people say like, oh, should I cut off at 500? I'm like, you should cut off when my attention clicks away. So to know that spot. Sarah?
Yeah, and just to add something to that, and I don't know how it is for your platforms, but for us, I mean, almost half of our readers are on their mobile, that are reading from their phone. And so you have to think about, you know, the word count. You know, if it's a good story and say it's over 1,000 words for an essay, I mean, if it's a great story that can stand being that long, you know, we want people on the site for longer, maybe you want some longer pieces, but yeah, you have to think about the structure of your story too and how that looks as someone's scrolling on their phones. I mean, things have just changed so much now that, you know, moms might be reading it, you know, in ballet practice in between snacks and tying up slippers, you know, and so how are you going to keep their attention you know, when they're reading on their little handheld computer?
The most popular piece we've had on our site recently was about 350 words. And most of our traffic is mobile also. But our word limit is about 500 words. We'll go a little longer, but I really feel like that's about as much as we can do.
No, that's interesting. Do each of you have limits as to how much the longest a piece can go on your site? We do not have a limit set. Shannon, do you have a limit, a length limit?
Not officially, but you know, I agree with the shorter time on the mobile, you know, attention span, but we don't have a limit. But I usually go between, I don't know, 600 and 800 words. If it's a really thoughtful, compelling piece, up to 1,000, maybe 1,200. So I have this Facebook group that I allow pretty much anybody to join, and it's called Mamapedia bloggers, and I'll let them upload their posts, and I will, you know, source content from there. But I'll also put up writing tips, things that are helpful for me. And I think that for a blogger, when you're submitting, I mean, the number one thing, if you're going to catch my attention, the number one thing you need to do is title your piece appropriately. Titles are so important because I'm looking at so much content, and I know you're cute, like a cute title or creative, but if I have no idea what you're writing about, I'm likely to table that to the side and get to the stuff that I know is being written about. And then the second thing, you know, writing tip that I put up, or one of the writing tips I put up was, if you're stuck, start with a story. I mean, that's why we read stories, because it brings us in, it draws us in, it creates that commonality of a story, and also establish in the beginning your credibility for writing about what you're writing about. We've got to trust your voice. So, you know, starting with the story, establishing your credibility. If I can see those things in the beginning of a piece, I'll continue to keep reading, because maybe I'll learn something, or this person has something, you know, to share with me that's personal. So titles and, you know, storytelling and credibility for me in the beginning is what's going to keep me reading.
Agreed. Those are all really, really good points. There was another question here that I kind of wanted to throw out to each of you. This is funny. Or actually a different one. How do you know when a piece fits? How do you know when, do you just know, or is there a list of criteria that you check off?
I jump in. You know, I've had a few pieces that I've read, and my husband has looked over at me and said, "Honey, why are you crying? What is wrong?" So, you know, pieces that provoke emotions, you know, just like Shannon said, you know, right at the beginning, if that story, you know, starts off and it just, I have to keep reading it. And yeah, I mean, you do know, you know, that it's well written, you know, and that you want to share that. You want other people to hear this person's story.
I like that. And you hit on a key word there, but I have a different spin on that, is the sharing aspect. If I read something and I immediately want to post it on my Facebook wall, boom. Right? I mean, that's huge, because we want our readers to do that. For everybody who is listening, posting something to your Facebook wall is like sending us 24 roses. I mean, each and every share you can do to a Facebook wall is honest. I mean, everybody's smiling because it is so true. That is like the ultimate high five to a writer, to an editor, to a site, is giving them that share to your Facebook wall. So I use that oftentimes when I'm reading a new piece that's coming in from a press angle. I think of like, am I going to post this? Am I going to share this on my wall?
So I went to a recent conference on writing in women, and I went into a specific seminar on crafting the personal essay. And it was by a woman who's been published in a lot of different places, including Modern Love. And what they look for in these, you know, Gawker and Huffington Post, Modern Love and Salon and all those things, which may not be our wheelhouse, but she said is a story. And you go through the story and go through every step of the story as if you're walking down the street. And if you're telling them something a day in the life. It doesn't have to be a huge, you know, epic tale, but you can tell a story in a short amount of words and still get, you know, something funny or something that's going to resonate with a bunch of people if you just focus on the details maybe of the storytelling. So, you know, I'm all about storytelling. And those who can do it well in a short amount of words are, you know, you have my high praise.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those are really good points, Shannon. I mean, getting it out there, the clear and concise thing. When I was in grad school, my background was, I was a biology major back in the day, and the woman that I partnered up with was an English major, and we often had to partner up different activities that we were doing in grad school, and it was really difficult because I was the clear, concise, get to the point person, and she was very verbose in getting there, but we actually ended up complimenting each other, because if you can get all of those great literary devices in there and keep it clear and concise with the mobile medium, it's huge, especially since everybody's on such a tiny screen. Another question for each of you. Do you ever ask for second opinions on pieces that you're unsure of, or you just make that decision to say no outright?
We have a team approach. Our editor-in-chief is definitely the front lines. And she will, you know, there are things that she will absolutely just outright reject. But anytime a piece kind of falls in that middle ground where she thinks, you know, is it really just not quite good enough of an editor, or is it just that it's well written but the topic isn't resonating with me, and do you guys think the topic will resonate with our audience? In those cases, we will take kind of a team approach and go and check it out and then say, you know, thumbs up or thumbs down.
Good. Anyone else want to chime in there?
I'll go ahead. You know, we're a very small team, so unfortunately we don't have a big team of editors to look at things. But yeah, you know, we have a print publication as well, so you know, there's some things that are better suited for print than they are for digital, and so, you know, we'll flag those pieces and we'll look at those and see if they're a fit someplace else. But it kind of goes back to when you ask somebody to write a piece, or you're asking a specific writer to do something, and maybe it doesn't come back as you thought it would, or you know, you do just need some second eyes on there to say, is this really the direction we wanted it to go, or how could we better communicate what we're looking for with that person? And then it's really nice to have other staff members to bounce stuff off of.
Anyone else want to chime in there? Okay, I love this one, and I think this is something that's going to make you all smile. It says, I'm really interested to know what editors expect of their contributors in terms of sharing and promoting their own work on the editor's website. What more, this just made me go, woo! What more can I do as a contributor after my piece is accepted and published? Do all editors have similar expectations? Like I just said, the 24 roses, that's how this question feels to me. Share for me, I say if you get on BonBon Break, go share 3 other pieces that are on the site that week, and share the voice of the place that you were, where you were shared, because you're helping out your fellow contributors, and that's what builds the community within a space. And so make that bridge, share some of the other content in that same spot. Anyone else?
Well, I love when somebody makes a great shareable graphic that they can put up on Facebook or Pinterest to make their post even more enticing. I think that is just fantastic. And we've had some posts really pick up steam lately that are over a year old because the author just breathed some new life into it on Pinterest with a really great graphic. So I love that because that person gets more eyes on their work, we get more eyes on our site. It's wonderful.
How do we, oh, go ahead, Lynn.
I was just going to say, I think this is true for maybe all of us, that we depend on kind of a core group of contributors that will sort of fairly regularly send us content. We know we can depend on them. We're very comfortable with their style. They're comfortable with our editing. And when someone new comes onto the site and they share, you know, somebody else's post, they're going to turn around and get shared back again. And I think in addition to kind of sharing somebody else's stuff, go and make that content, talk with them. Say, hey, you know, Sarah at Established 1975, I shared your hilarious story and I thought it was really funny. And Sarah's highly likely to turn around and go back and share their piece again. And then that makes them make this really strong connection, which I think is really great. And I would, you know, take advantage of the network that we're creating, go out and make those connections, build them up, and then you'll find yourself tuning in the next time Sarah's writing, and Sarah will tune in the next time you write, and you'll keep sharing and keep growing and keep all supporting one another. And that's what makes it really, really beautiful, is these connections that we can make from sharing and getting to know one another.
Yeah, it was really fun. I had 2 of our contributors who had both written original pieces for us, and they met up in San Francisco and took a picture together and sent it to me, and they're like, look, here we are, your BonBon friends. And I was like, oh, that just makes my heart so incredibly happy, because I wasn't even there, but they were sharing that they were part of the community together and then sent it back to me. So for me, that is incredible. And I think that's part of what you're saying there is, Lynn, is that make those bridges. We are bringing you into the community to take advantage of it. You know, work cross-genre, work across, find somebody else whose message reaches to you within the site and share it. Get it out there.
I've got something to add to that, and I am so guilty of this, but don't, as a blogger, don't underestimate your influence. I think there are a lot of times you write something and nobody responds, and you're like, okay, I'm worthless, you know, nobody likes me. But people are still listening, and you do have a voice, and because you put yourself out there, you'd be surprised how many people are listening. So don't underestimate your influence, and when you go and share something, and don't think, oh, I'm just self-promoting. No, I mean, people are listening and they want to hear what you have to say because you put yourself out there. So I'm guilty of that as well. I feel like nobody's looking at my private little blog, but again, I think people are. You just don't underestimate your influence and your ability to share these things that are happening on other sites, and for that to have a domino effect for you.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Anyone else want to chime in there? And so here, this is going to be our final question that we're going to wrap up with here. And it's, what is the one piece of advice you would give writers who want to submit to your site? Some examples that we're getting: mission guidelines first, get a feel for the voice of the site, don't give up if you've been rejected, etc. But so signing out of here, Leslie, we'll start with you. What would be the one piece of advice that you would give writers who submit to In the Powder Room?
Make me laugh. That's it. I mean, it's a very gut feel for me. If you can make me laugh or cry, or laugh and cry at the same time, all the better. Then you're in. It's that easy.
Great advice. Great advice, Lynn.
For us, it's be blunt. You know, say the thing you would not say anywhere else. You know, bring out that piece that you are desperate to tell, the story you're desperate to tell but cannot tell on your own site, and give that to us, and let us, let us take care of your words. I mean, that is a huge responsibility we feel on ourselves, but we love that. We love to publish that story that goes there and takes those risks and does not hold back.
Love that. And Sarah?
I would say, be honest and be bold, and don't be afraid to tell your story. Because the truth is, if it's a hard story to share, there's probably somebody out there who is just dying to read your words and will be able to relate and to connect to your piece. And that's our whole mission, is to connect each other. So, don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
That's really, really great advice. And Shannon?
For me, it's tell a good story and have some added value. Bring something that only you can bring to the table from your experience. Tell us, make us grow, help us learn, and tell it in a story. And you're good to go.
Definitely. And mine would be to embrace the community, because while blogging is a big, vast, incredibly large place, each of us has created a really unique community surrounding our sites. Get involved in it and take advantage of the support that's there, because it's pretty incredible. And I have to say, I feel really fortunate to be able to speak for today, because even amongst ourselves as editors, we have recently created a community for ourselves, since we share common things that it's different than blogging. And so I'm very, very grateful for the community that has been created amongst my editor sisters here. So I'm thank you for being here today. So we are going to wrap up here, and for everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us here today. And please remember to subscribe, tweet, pin, and post. Send us those 24 roses on all of our social channels. And again, please don't forget to jump into BonBon Break, where it says BonBon Break Live, and you can see past shows. And pretty soon you'll be able to even hear this podcast on there. We will be back here in 2 weeks, same time, and we're going to have a surprise guest. I can't tell you the details just yet, but watch BonBon Break for details. See you then, and thank you for joining us today. Until next time, be good to yourself and take a BonBon break, because you deserve it.